roads, but that actually will come back to us at a future meeting. So I'm going to move past. Does District Council have anything else they wanted to bring up tonight?
Briefly, we, in collaborative effort, the construction loan agreement, SRF construction loan agreement was signed prior to January 1st, 2018. So the finance rate is 1.10%, 1.10, which is half of what the finance rate was for the design loan agreement, which was 2.13.
Yeah.
So we got that in, and I appreciate the efforts of DEP's council office, general counsel's office, those guys. Some of the staff were on vacation during the week between Christmas and New Year's, but the general counsel's office contacted me. We worked back and forth, and Dave Lapidus and I worked out some language issues we had. And so I really appreciate the assistance of FDEP. Their staff was fantastic. So we achieved that.
Thank you.
Nothing further. Yeah.
District Engineer.
Okay, for the record, again, Danny Nelson with Tetra Tech. You have my task authorization update memo. The only thing I want to point out, under the storage facility, I had an error on that. There are two checks, there are two permits. We have one's to the county and one's to the Water Management District. We do have the application fee for the county. We do not have it for the Water Management District, so we're moving forward with the LDO application process. We'll be submitting that shortly. But other than that, if you have any questions.
I do.
Are you talking about the memo?
Yes.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions.
I'll let you go first.
You go first.
Shoot for it.
You go first.
Rock, paper, scissors.
My question was on the Phase 1, Year 2 lake bank restoration.
Yes.
I know we've gotten the SRF loan. However, I know that there was a meeting where there was a list of 12 additional items that they wanted, staff wanted included in the RFP. And where are you on taking care of those items that staff was concerned about?
We had a list that was prepared. We met on that. A lot of the items in the list, and none of those were specific to that project. Those were comments that were from the Phase 1, Year 1, and said, hey, here are the comments we have for Phase 1, Year 1. They're basically going to be the same for Phase 1, Year 2. So we met. A lot of those comments were associated with littorals. There were action items that came from that. We actually took care of the modifications and provided that back to the district. But really the changes, I think the only real change to the drawings were showing where aeration equipment was at. So the drawings haven't changed since October with the exception of that. But I don't know where the district is with release for advertisement. But that's something that, could have been released in October, November. We got the approval for funding at that point. We've received no more comments from the district, so that's something that can move forward at any time.
We got a real problem on that.
Well, I thought my understanding was, though, that because of some of the learning curve from the first lakes and the things that are still outstanding for repair on some of those lakes, there was a request for some changes in the RFP that should go out for advertisement.
I'm not sure what those items are of there. The biggest change was reducing the area down of the use of the TRM material to only covering those major areas. That was the biggest, cost item. There were questions dating back even to May as to the level of surveying effort that we even provided a proposal for additional surveying that the district did not move forward on. So I'm not sure what those additional items are, but we've made the changes that were discussed from the notes that we had and from the meeting that we had. We've made the changes that we had. I think the biggest thing that I can recall that's outstanding that we still haven't had direction on is one of those issues as a lesson learned from the first phase was how to address the irrigation that's encroached upon. That's irrigation that may have extended into the bank area that comes from private property. So that was an issue that staff was going to discuss and determine how to move forward. And I'm not sure where that stands. But everything that we had as action items, we've addressed.
And I'm going to
That I'm-
ask either Chris or Mike to explain. I think there were some critical items that staff was really requesting be included that apparently are not. So can you speak to that, please?
Speak to a couple items. Yes, Mike, we were concerned with the lack of quantities on the fill material, getting cut and fill calculations, and we asked them to increase the amount of surveying so we could have that, and nothing was done with that. I'm not sure why.
Well, if I can address that. Actually, there was an email that was sent to Chris in May of last year asking if additional surveying should be provided. And Chris actually responded saying the design phase survey with control used for phase 1 is adequate, is fine, so move forward with what we already had. We did not perform the survey. The survey was done outside of our contract. During the commenting phase, that question or that comment came up again. We provided a scope to do additional surveying, and the staff has yet to even respond to that. So as far as that goes, and I think where staff is looking at is that would provide additional detail to get quantities, because one of the comments that staff had, which we fully disagreed with, and I actually have a memo to kind of talk about some of the concerns we have that I'll hand out, is that they wanted to include, to modify the bid to having unit quantities for the fill material. Our concern with that is you have no way to, or very difficult to document the fill that's actually brought in. So you could go and, the surveying effort that was performed, it was not performed by us, it was performed by others through the district, gives you enough information to have the level of detail that you had in the phase 1, and that includes it as basically a lump sum or a linear foot cost to do the work. So it's all linear foot for the material, for the fill, and everything else. What they've asked for is to break out that by unit as for the fill by cubic yards. Problem with that is you then get into issues of delivery, what's the moisture content, what's the compaction, and it's very difficult to actually monitor what that requirement is. And our expressed concern, which I have in this memo, was the last project that I know that was done this way was actually done by the county while Mike Tisch was with the county, and they even recommended not doing it because they sat in a lawsuit for this exact same issue, where the contractors sued the county because of the quantities. And I think that the way that it was done in phase 1 is a more appropriate type of way of doing it for this, as a linear foot. So our recommendation on record is, and we've said that for months, is do not do it as a unit quantity item, or you're just opening yourself up to being in a position where the contractor has the advantage. So I actually do have a memo, and not only about that, but also the schedule in general and some of the other items. So I'll pass this out.
Well, the thing, and I understand the lump sum and the lineal foot issue. There's risk when you bid. And when you bid it that way, there is certainly risk. But the issue I've got is that notwithstanding that issue, where are we at relative to bidding? What do we need to do to bid this project? Is that the only issue that's outstanding, that's keeping us from bid?
If staff has other issues, they've not been brought to our attention. We provided the final documents on the 26th to staff.
But we have we're heading down a road that's just exactly what happened in phase 1. We're going to be giving a go-ahead on March 1st if we don't watch out here.
Well,
We wanted to be having a bid right now to be awarding the contract so that we can start almost immediately.
well, the other issue you have is the issue with the development order, which,
Yeah.
we met with, as we all know, we met with the county in fall of last year. And we actually provided a task authorization proposal to the board in October to prepare not only for the phase one, year one work that was already done, the post, but they've also made it clear we cannot do the work for the next phase until we have the LDOs moving forward.
Well, we have
And
two LDOs.
we have
One
two
that's
LDOs.
after-the-fact
Right.
LDO, and another
Right.
one that's for these new 8 ponds.
Right, so we presented a task authorization in October, and staff said that they were going to handle that in-house, so that task authorization was not approved. So I don't know where that
Where-
sits, but you can't do the work until you have the
Where are
solid
those
work.
LDOs? Are they done and submitted? Because those were supposed to be in by December 15th.
The, after the fact LDO, I'm preparing that and getting ready to submit it. I need to get the check to submit that.
What's
Yeah, after
taking
the
so long?
fact.
That was supposed to be back in. Dave Loveland was on my butt for the fact that we didn't have that done. What's taking so long on it?
Just pulling all that, pulling the information together and submitting it.
And then what about the Phase 2 project? Because that, or the second part of Phase 1, the 8 ponds, those also have the LDO, only this time they're not going to let us start construction. Is that LDO being reviewed?
That has not been submitted yet.
What are we waiting on it?
We were going back and forth about some of the construction issues, about Tetra Tech wanting to go forward as a lump sum project as opposed to, I mean, I have reservations about going forward on Phase 2 with these next 8 being the same as the first 5. We can go ahead and bid them, but I think that the price that you get is going to be very comparable to what we saw on the first 5.
I don't know why it would be if we've eliminated 50% of the fabric. What leads you to believe that?
It's still going to be a very expensive.
Well, I think it's going to be expensive. There's no doubt in my mind about
And-
that, but
Well, and the quantities and the method is everything is going to be left up to the contractor to determine what the price is. We don't have
he's got to be
quantities.
low bidder, though.
Sure.
He's got to be the low bidder, so he can't
Right,
play a
but it-
game. But if you do it unit price, you can get burnt, because you've got to have an accurate quantity. If you estimate, let's say, 100,000 yards of fill, and it comes in 150, they're going to want to renegotiate the unit price. And likewise, if you estimate 150, it comes in 80, they're going to want money more to cover their loss.
Understood.
It's
That's
risk. It's just not worth the risk doing that.
Part of the reason you have good surveys because you generate good quantities. I mean,
Your problem, though, is, Mike, we walked around this thing, and if you've got those escarpments, you'd have to take those survey points every 15 feet. That's going to cost $50,000, $60,000 in additional surveys.
it would. But I mean, and I think in the first 5 projects, we left several $100,000 on the table. Those contractors made a very hefty profit.
I have no idea what you're looking at that tells you that.
I was
I
talking
don't,
to the
I don't have a
contractors.
clue. I don't have a clue. But my thing is, our engineer is recommending that we don't do it, and the county is recommending we don't do it. Our problem is, I want to get these 8 ponds under construction. What do we have to do to light this fire? But the big one is the LDO. If we lit this thing tonight and advertised, we couldn't start because we don't have the LDO done. If we can't get this LDO done stuff in-house, guys, I'm going to tell you, we're going to consultants. If you guys can't get the work done, we got to go to the consultants.
There needs to be a project plan put together, if there's not already, with critical timelines. Those timelines need to be socialized between staff and our engineers. And when we are yellow or trending yellow about missing a deadline, that needs to come back to the board or get escalated. We can't, we should be learning from previous experiences. And if there's a disagreement on approach, it needs to be ironed out. If you can't come to a determination within your timelines, it needs to be brought to the board and we'll decision it for you.
Yeah, what was the LDO dollar value that we had to do the work out of house? Because we had a timeline on this, and what scares me right now is that if counting, what, Chris, 30, 60 days?
30 days.
So we're getting to the point where there is no way in hell we're going to do Phase 2 ponds this year.
Well, and I'm all in favor for value engineering, and I think we should be looking at cost saves wherever possible. I think we're all don't have an appetite to spend more money. Matter of fact, we would like to get
Well, that's the whole idea of what
to
we
to
did,
spend
is to cut
less,
back.
and
Yeah.
we should be, looking at efficiencies as we go through the process. My whole point is just we've got to stick to timeline, or else we're going to put ourselves in a position that is going to cost more money, or elongate the process.
Well, to answer your question, there were two parts. There was the post for the year one and the pre for year two, and they were basically $6,000 a piece. And by our schedule, it would have been submitted in the middle of December. Now, to be clear, too, Mike had mentioned that the part of the reason on the LDO was because of the issue of the quantity, and that the county has no bearing on
They don't get
on
into
the
means and
LDO.
methods.
Right.
No.
And to be clear too, if the district wants to move forward with unit price, that's a district decision. We're just not recommending it. The other part to that, to do that, you don't have the level of surveying. We did not perform the surveying. We recommended additional surveying if you wanted to move that way, and the district has not moved that way. So right now, you don't have the information to be able to move forward that way. And if you were to start today, you'd have to get pricing for surveying. Then you would have to have the surveying done. Then once the surveying was done, you would have to update the
45 days
drawings and move forward. You're probably talking about a
If that's-
2 to 3 month delay, and you're essentially talking about this project being done next year. So that's kind of where
Well,
you're at.
And it seems as though we're at mission critical on that issue anyway. I mean, if we're gonna be waiting on the county for the LDO, and my understanding was we were gonna try and do an LDO that would cover everything going forward, not just these 8 ponds.
Well, you can only do
Just the ones you're
what
doing
you
the
have
work for.
construction plans
Okay.
for. So
All right.
they will allow us to do everything that you have ready at that time. Now, typically, they would only allow you to do one pond as an individual
Mm-hmm.
LDO. They've given us the benefit of allowing us to do one LDO for everything you're going to do. But I fully agree, and that's what I say in my memo, is I'm concerned with the timing of that. And I'm not sure where that process sits at.
What if we do this, let's split the baby. What if we would proceed with, say, 7 or 6 of the 8 ponds immediately, as designed? We pick 2, we go and get the surveying cost to do those 2, and we bid them unit price.
I still don't understand exactly what the save is.
Your save is that, as Mike and Chris are saying, is you're putting the pencil in the hand of the contractor on
On linear.
on lump sum, but he has to be the low bidder. So he can't go and exaggerate. In other words, if you think it's 150,000 yards of dirt, he'll put the cost in for 200,000. But if he puts it in too high, he's not the low bidder. On the other hand, if he goes unit price and you tell him that it's a quantity of 150,000, now what he's doing is arguing or competing with his buddy for the unit price, not the quantity. Then your quantity better be nuts on, or you've got a problem.
Right, okay.
You got
Now-
a
I
problem,
now
because you're
understand.
gonna get hit with a change order.
I get it.
And that, when it comes down to dirt work, that's probably one of the most variable places to do it. But I don't have a problem with going back and doing it, but we have to do the surveying to do that. Right now, you have a proposal in to do the surveying, which was for what?
Well, the proposal that we had in was for bathymetric. We did not have a proposal for the additional cross-sectional, because we never had. The last correspondence we had was from the district manager stating that the level of effort that they had prepared previously was satisfactory. So,
And what you're saying is that, in your opinion, it's not satisfactory enough to offset the risk associated with calculating unit
I think
quantities.
cross-sections are, I'd have to go back and look, cross-sections are taken every, let's say they were even every 50 feet, which I don't think they were. If you've got an area of escarpment that is only 50 feet long and maybe you only got one cross-section there, you don't have any information to really
How to calculate
estimate
it.
that quantity. So
Yeah, that's your
what that survey would need to do is actually go to those specific, eroded areas and actually get detailed information every, 5, 10 feet, whatever it takes, and do that on every pond that you would propose to do that on. So that, no cost has been provided for that. Now, there was a cost provided for, as part of the facilities plan, for the next set of lakes to do that level of effort.
Well, I was going to throw out a deal. I've had this argument numerous times in 40 years. Go out and pick a pond, pick one of these ponds, we'll do the surveying to get what we believe to be a legitimate, good estimation of the unit deal. Then we bid it lump sum with an alternative bid for unit price.
For that one pond.
that one pond.
And
The only- the only
Then you're
thing-
gonna get, then you're gonna get the
baseline
bear out of the buckwheat.
The
You'll
only thing-
find out what's going on.
I swear I'm gonna start writing all this stuff down.
Madam Chairman, the only reason I asked the question about for one is because if you exceed a certain threshold for the cost of the surveying work, you need to do the competitive selection process if you're not gonna use the district engineer. You have the CCNA requirements for.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
That's
yes.
all.
Just one pond.
One pond should be fine, that's what I was wanting to clarify.
Yeah.
That should be fine.
But in that way, we make a determination on where we are with this lump sum unit price on that item. My thing is, I just don't want to lose the construction season on 7 or 6 other ponds. We're going to have people lined up in here saying, what's going on?
And Mr. Tinkle, if I think Danny said they delivered the final specs and plans the 26th, we could move ahead and advertise it next week, and then in that 30 days, get the DOs, and you'll see what the prices are when you come back. And we could also coincidentally be working on another pond with full survey, and then just look at what the linear price is and compare
Yeah,
it with
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, that's what I was looking at.
That was my thought. We can advertise and also submit for the limited development order in parallel.
So here,
Well, the problem is, now
can't- they can't
you
start
enter into
construction.
an issue, though, as I understand it, though,
They couldn't
talking to
start
Caldwell, you cannot issue a notice to proceed until you have an approved LDO.
Right.
And that puts us in a deal of guessing how long it's going to take them, which means we hold the bids. And those contractors, we hold those bids past March, that price is going to go through the roof because they're taking all the risk of doing it in wet weather.
Well, I think if, and I agree with you, I think we should bid these ponds so that the board can see the prices we're talking about. And try and get this done quickly, although we get into March, middle of March, end of March, I don't think we should proceed this
no,
year.
we put it on hold.
I mean,
Well,
honestly.
it depends. You're a little bit of apples and oranges. Those first 5 ponds were tough ponds. Now, some of the 8 are
Going
tough,
to be
but they're
tough,
not
yeah.
that tough. So it may be that what you want to do is you might take some of the smaller ponds that can be done in 60 days or 90 days. Because if you start March 1st, you still have March, April, May. And
Right.
last year, we even got into the second week of June when all hell broke loose with all the rain.
My thought was
So-
to actually group them by geographical areas.
You could
So-
do that. You
And
could
they
do that.
we could do a group of 2 ponds.
You could do that.
Do the Stony Brook, those would be 2 ponds, so that would be a project. The ones over in Callaway Greens would be a project.
do that easy, yeah.
We could do it that way, and hopefully we would get several, thought was to get multiple contractors working on it.
But typically, once we open bids, what I was getting to is, once we open bids, we have a turnaround time of what, 30 to 45 days to issue a notice to proceed with all the paperwork that we have to do. Our problem now becomes is that, can we get that LDO approval to where we can issue that notice to proceed? And our deadline to working with is somewhere around March 1st. So we're on a less than 60-day clock.
Well, let's see how far we can get to the
Let's
first
get the
meeting in
LDO
March.
done
Yeah.
as quick as
And I'll work
possible.
with
That's the
Danny
key.
to
Yeah.
process the LDO.
Do we want to
And-
go on ahead then and select a pond of which one of the 8 that we want to do a more exhaustive survey to try to quantify the unit price deal?
Well,
I don't have a
I'll work
problem
with
with
Danny
that.
on,
Yeah.
there was some of the ponds, there was a few of them that were rather large. We
I-
can look at.
Suggest 2, and I would suggest 2 of the more difficult ones.
And
I would agree. If you're going to do them on the difficult ones because that's where you're going to see the spread.
okay, I'll let the 2 of you,
We'll work
I
with
think it's
Danny.
best for the engineer and for those that are gonna be overseeing the project to make the determination of what ponds would be best
Well-
to do that with.
Well, the question that's coming up, or that I've heard before, is that we got this $10,000 limitation. With this, can we give Chris an exception on this to go and retain surveying as needed to get, whether it's Pond 92 or Pond 97, or whatever you two agree with is the 2 you're going to do? If that price exceeds 10,000, I sure as hell don't want it to come back here.
Well, I think with the 10,000 Mr. Tinkle's referring to is the resolution as far as
Resolution.
the authorization as opposed to the CCNA. And the board.
CCNA is more than that,
And the
though.
board can provide that authorization tonight if it wishes to,
Okay.
provided, again, that the competitive selection process does not come into play.
That's my point, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can see where the 10.
Just one pond.
I can see where Chris needs to have the wiggle room to possibly go over 10. but he still has to stay under the CCNA.
Question down here? Bill?
I just want to add one comment. There's nothing wrong with having difference of opinions and different approaches. I think I encourage it. It should lead us to the right solution, or at least viable solutions. But in 5 minutes, less than that, we have a solution moving forward that I would hope that could have been something that was brought to this board prior to. So collaboration is key, and we've got a lot of smart people working on this stuff. We just got to get it done faster, and you guys got to collaborate a little bit more.
So
The-
we know what we're gonna do. We're gonna get the LDO submitted. You're gonna work on 2 ponds that we're going to get different types of quotes on. We're gonna send all of the next phase out for bids and see how far we can get March 1st. Let us know every month where we stand, what's our update, so that we can keep a handle on this.
Who is the project manager? Who is responsible for this work?
Well, it gets to that collaboration. Now, with all of this work, it wasn't done through our general day-to-day engineering. It was done through task authorizations, and essentially our services are done. There'll be a next phase, which we brought before the board previously for construction management, but there is nothing in there for the project management and that sort of thing. So, I mean, that's a good question. That's part of that collaboration, and I would say probably it would be Mike, but that's really up to, board and staff, and we can certainly discuss that.
We done with that one?
Yeah.
Where are we on the storm sewer rehabilitation work at Gateway Greens and getting that? I'm sitting here with all the stuff ready to go and have somebody write plans and specs, and we approved it a month or so ago. Are we working?
No, we are still waiting for task authorization to be issued.
He asked if we had any questions.
What-
That I started with mine.
But I haven't seen any, when you say task authorization, did something come across my desk? It's a contract or a proposal that I missed?
No, it was approved. This is the one that I walked on at I walked 3 of them on at the previous, the meeting in December.
Okay, and again, I thought we approved that.
It was approved, and then it has to be, because it was done as a task authorization.
Yes.
It has to be executed, so it required, Tony's signature, the chairperson's signature, and a testing of the chairperson's, my signature, and a testing of mine. So we're just waiting for that final execution, and then we can move forward quickly.
Margaret, your hand broke?
I thought I've signed everything that I've been asked
What's
to.
taking so long? Why does it take so long to get that done?
I'm not sure.
Chris, do you know where we're at on that?
I thought they were all signed and returned, the 3 of them from December 7th.
No, we got the 3 that we've had are the hydraulic modeling. That was one that was approved back in March. We have that one back. We don't have the one that Mr. Tinkle's talking about, or the one for the engineer's report for Pelican, 5th amended. And which, as soon as we get that, we'll move forward. We'll move forward ASAP.
Yeah, because it's, again, the same thing that you guys ran into at Stony Brook and we ran into at Silver Lake. You want to do this kind of work when the water's down, and boy, the water is down now and it's dropping like crazy. We need to be out for bid.
Yeah.
And I haven't even given you the details of the cut sheets yet.
I agree.
Well, and there, part of the problem, I think, on this storm pipe cleaning bid is that the money,
Yeah, we put $165,000 in the last budget.
but the $165,000 in the budget was for anything that needed to be done
No,
district-wide.
no. They specifically stipulated in that discussion that $165,000 was an estimate for the work that had to be done in Gateway Greens, and it may exceed that, but it would have to be phased. That work was stipulated for Gateway Greens. Gateway Greens was next in line after Stony Brook and Silver Lake to be done.
That's true, but part of it is gonna have to be the phasing.
We don't know. We haven't bid it. I have no idea. I don't know what the bids are going to come in. The issue is if we're taking other items out of that 165,000, this is the first time I've heard about it. The only thing I know that might create an issue, which is again Gateway Greens, is our repair upon 106. And that was what, Chris, 24,000, something like that from Brad?
That was
If that 165,000 has to include that, then we have 141,000 then, or whatever the number is left. But that discussion was, that 165,000 I argued for was for Gateway Greens storm sewer rehabilitation.
Yeah, and the discussion was that that would be next, but it probably wouldn't be the entire community. It was gonna have to be.
We don't know that. We haven't bid it. And you may be right. It may be that it exceeds that, and we might have to face it. But right now, we don't have anything to base that on. We need to get the bids. We should be bidding it right now.
Do we have an engineer's estimate of what that total cost is yet?
No, no. We've got the quantities, and somebody can take from the previous bid at Silver Lake and/or Stony Brook and apply the unit prices that we received at that time to come up with an estimate. That would be easy to do, because we have all the quantities.
I'd just like to have an order of magnitude of how much the project's gonna cost.
That would be easy. I can sit down with you and Danny, give you my cut sheets, check them off, and I've got it by 60-inch pipe all the way down to 18-inch pipe, the number of lineal feet. We can use the Stony Brook deal or Silver Lake unit prices to compare it. Your problem is that on both of those jobs, y'all didn't go that way. You went on an hourly basis, on a weekly or a daily basis. Do you recall that? You had Brad come in and he was going to charge you $20,000 for 40 hours or whatever the number was. So it wasn't a unit price contract.
So
Remember
where
that?
did your cut sheets come from? Where's the?
From the ones that Morris Riley did years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And the idea is to have like.
Same one that we use for
Sewer cleanup.
Stony Brook.
Back trucks clean them out. I mean, what's the method?
Yeah, you got about 185, no, 300 inlets, part of that to be cleaned. 300 inlets.
I was just curious as to the methodology of how it was supposed to be done. I haven't seen anything.
That's yet to be designed, but I assumed that the methodology we would use, since it's the same thing that we did at Stony Brook Silver Lake, would be the same thing. The issue being, how are you going to define the work? On those, Brad gave you all a contract. I wasn't on the board at that time, but they gave you a contract. You negotiated a weekly rate, as I recall, for pipes under a certain diameter, which to me is you talk about rolling the dice type of way of doing work. I'd much rather do it on a lineal foot basis. But however we come out with it, we've got the quantities that we can go through there and calculate, because to do it on a weekly basis, just get with Brad and say, okay, Brad, your weekly basis assumed how many feet? 500, 1,000, 2,000, then just go backwards and divide it and see how many we have. But we need to get started on those plans to be able to get that work while the water level's dropping. But that's another one.
If I can.
But I'm lost as to why we aren't working on it right now.
Well, I mean, we are still waiting that authorization, but I can, and part of it may be a policy thing. In November, at I believe the second meeting in November, 2 items were brought up. That was one, and we were asked to bring a task authorization back. The second was for the Fifth Amended Engineers Report for Pelican, both of which are, time sensitive. And both of those of which were under $10,000, but we were asked to bring a task authorization back to the board. Instead, that was within the limit of district manager, and maybe in the future, if we didn't have to do the task authorizations, 1, we wouldn't lose the 2 weeks of getting it before the board, and then 2, we wouldn't have to go through the extraneous signature, phase that we've been going through for the last,
Well,
month.
I heard something earlier that's got me very concerned and frankly a little bit ticked off. Is to why was this held off because a board member said something to staff that we didn't have any money to do this? Because you've said it to me several times, and I pointed out to you several times, we have $165,000. If somebody was let's say, putting the skids on this, I'd sure as hell like to have known about it. You didn't say anything. So then, why are we worried about the $165,000?
It was just brought up to me that the 165,000, and this was within the last couple of days, was going to have to cover more than just the pipe cleaning.
That-
That there
that-
was other things that were gonna need to be,
As a board member, why didn't I know about that? First I've heard about that.
like I said, it's been the last couple of days.
Where did you hear it from?
I met with staff.
I meet with staff, and Chris and I had 3 hours up to Joe DeCerbo's and 3 hours back, and it never came up.
I-
Are we missing something here, Chris?
No,
Is
no,
does somebody
no, I
else
meant-
know of a project that's got a dedication or a handhold on that 165,000?
No, and I-
Other than Pond 106? I do know 106.
Yeah, and no, my question was, and I mentioned it to you on having the money, and you said there was 165 in there for Gateway Greens, and I said,
Yes.
is all that for Gateway Greens?
That was my understanding. And things happen when you do a budget. This issue of Pond 106 coming up, that we have I guess we have no other source in that budget whatsoever for fixing what we knew a year ago in the budget time, fixing Pond 106. Stephen?
I would say that there's nothing specific to that pond, but there certainly is places that if we need to move stuff around,
That's what I was getting to.
we can.
And I think we've had that conversation before, that there's.
Yeah, and that's what I
Okay, so
thought, we
let's-
had
let's
some
move forward. We
flexibility.
can't- let's not
But
hash
let's
this out
get
anymore.
this thing going so that we can get started on that project and not have another bad summer rain come in and we have flooding in the streets.
Hey, And
This-
Danny, I like that you submit the task authorization. I think as part of your report, we should go through this. So the first one for me, the hydraulic modeling, it says Tetra Tech is closed. This authorization awaits issuance of new authorization approved by the board in October.
We have that now.
So we're good. So
We
no
have that
action
now.
there.
We have that now.
So, I mean, we've bounced around on a bunch of these different items. I would like to start at the top, go through them, and if there's an action we need to do, let's action it. So we're not just bouncing around.
The second item, really, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, this may be Stephen, but the storage facility, we're essentially awaiting one application fee. We have an application fee for the LDO for the county. We're awaiting the water management. But this one, to me, is not as time sensitive because I don't believe there are capital funds in the budget to do anything right now. So it's not as time sensitive. Not to say that's not a reason to not move forward.
You mean, we don't have the funds allocated for the
The permit
storage
fee?
facility?
No. Let me be very clear. Again, the same scenario. You have funds, you don't have it specifically budgeted right now for that project. Because when we did the budget, that was something that.
What is it in, a contingency?
No, it's in your capital project fund. You have a specific fund where you have money set
But I thought we
aside.
identified projects
And
there.
within there, we identify projects every year.
What you're saying, we can switch.
You can switch, for example, the office building expansion, you had 165,000 budgeted for that right now.
Which is gone.
So you move stuff around, so again, it's just a matter of, looking at the budget, moving things around and adjusting to what the priorities are, moving forward as the priorities change.
So for us to action this, Margaret, what we,
Get the check for the permit application. I mean, you
provide a
can't do
check.
nothing without it. What's the permit check cost, $250?
Well, I'll tell you that as soon as we have it, yeah, we'll submit both the LDO and the water management. And if those funds are there, and it sounds like those funds are there, for the sake of having the development that will be coming in to the east of us, it is time sensitive to get any
Yes.
development we do in there, so we don't have to deal with the buffering issue. So as soon as we have that, we'll get that application submitted. So I don't really see any. Again, it's not as time sensitive. However, it is in the sense that we want to be ahead of that work. So.
yeah. And Danny, I would love to see, even just if we to take these things and we sequence them out or schedule them.
We can
just
put
so
some timelines on
Yeah,
there.
just to figure out what we need to focus
We
on
can do
when, and
that.
it's based on prioritization, and if there's, specific things we need to back into, like the facilities project, then we have those critical dates. But what's gonna happen is we're gonna start to get bottlenecked.
Yep.
And we're gonna have all this work that we want to get done by end of the year, and we're not gonna have the ability to get them done.
Well, this
So-
is our second or third attempt at this, and it was actually Mrs. Flaherty that asked for this. So we could certainly tweak this and make it, better, more user-friendly and more prioritized.
I like it though. I mean,
Yeah.
No, good. And Mike did say that he does have the second check for us, so that's not an issue. So we just have to get that from Mike, and then we can get those submitted. They're basically ready to go
Okay.
as soon as we have those.
Going on?
The Pelican Preserve database, there's really nothing to do. There's no action on that at this point. We're just waiting for information from, and as you can see, it's a pretty minor item. There's nothing, that would be a low priority item. And going down the proposed, that first one has already been authorized, so I've got that set up, and we're moving forward with updating the model to get the new infrastructure that was added since the last models were done in place.
Well, this says here, though, action district manager to complete
This is when I
execution.
prepared this. This is, I prepared this, there's been
Since then, you
activity
got
since
this.
then.
Okay.
So this was prepared on the 26th, so, we're
Okay.
now a week and a half later. The Stormwater Facilities Plan Phase 2, this was a walk-on item in December. We had presented it previously, and the board had asked to bring it back with a increased level, which we did. That was approved, contingent upon me talking to DEP, and I think I sent a email out to all the board members stating that I did talk to DEP, and because of the way they're set up, the work cannot begin until February, I think 15th, February 14th is when their next public hearing is. So essentially, we just need that authorization before February 14th, and then as soon as February 14th hits, we can start doing that work. So
But that's been approved.
that's been approved, and we'll work with Chris to just get the authorization, signatures, and everything on that. The next two we've already talked about. That's the fifth amended and the storm pipe cleaning. And again, those would be ones that I would like in the future if we don't have to, and maybe that's partly my fault. If we don't have to bring those, if they're under $10,000, especially if they're board directed already, and both of those were board directed prior to us bringing those task authorizations, then we don't have to go through. So, because we've essentially lost 6 weeks from when the board approved these, going through the one having to prepare the task authorization to bring back to the board, and then the signature phase. So if we can avoid that, that'll definitely
Do we have to
save
call
us
that
some
out,
times.
that this does not require task
You actually
authorization?
have a resolution presently that says if it's under $10,000, it can be approved directly by the district manager. So you have that resolution in place, and what that actually says is that the next following board meeting, anything that the district manager would approve would come back. It would just be an item on. You wouldn't have to do anything.
Would it be
with
on
but
your
you would
task,
see it.
would it be on your update under your task authorization?
Yes,
you know?
it would still be a
So it
task
would-
for us. It just wouldn't have to come to the board to go through that level,
let's-
that extra level of
let's
effort.
do that.
Well, we even have, the resolution also has the deal, this was done in Dora's area, had a proviso for $10,000 to $50,000 that can be done by the chairperson. So if we have a task authorization that we've approved, then I think that we need to have a subsequent addition to the motion to allow you to do it if we see it's going to be between 10 and 50 and avoid this coming back in this
absolutely
Mother
agree.
May I. This is
And then-
ridiculous.
And then what happens is it can be approved and signed, and then comes back for reporting and
For
ratification.
awareness,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
becomes an update. Yeah.
It's part of the record.
Okay.
And the last one, I suggest we either, again, I think it would be, well, it's over that 50,000, but I'll certainly bring that back. This came before the board in October, I believe. I brought it before the board. We were, a few months out from being where we are now with the construction phase, but that would be for the construction management of that. So we'll bring that back before the board, but that one would need to come before the board. And that's essentially for us to perform the construction management duties for the phase 1, year 2 lakes that we're talking about right now.
Okay, we have some other things that are coming up that are really putting us in a box on getting answers to stuff. This Hampton Park, it looks like we've got Part A of Hampton Park resolved by the code enforcement. We now have the Part B, which is South Florida Water Management District. We can't do a thing with going to South Florida Water Management District until we have, we can buy what the engineer certified for Hampton Park, but based upon what I've used the term once, I can use it again, the falsified documents that we got from them the first time, I really don't want to put any faith in believing their elevations. We need elevations on Hampton Park to verify that thing was built right so that we know whether or not we're going to accept it. They are moving out that they want us to accept it. I got a phone call today from them that they want us to accept it by May 31st, into the first quarter.
Who did you get a phone call from?
Rhonda.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what did I say? What did I say?
May.
Sorry, March 31st. And my thing is that, guys, she didn't even know about the code enforcement issues, so she's got a big problem to solve those. But I don't want our holding up of the record drawing check and validation before we accept that side of it.
Had
And we
Rhonda-
need those surveys. Our problem is that Chris can go out and get them, and Tony, this is a legal deal that goes back to when the engineer agreement was done, and this thing, man, I wish I'd been on the board when you did this.
Rhonda,
This
did
puts-
Rhonda contact you about,
Hampton, no.
no, okay, why is she contacting you and not anybody else?
She likes me. You saw that today. I got the scowl. She didn't like me at all.
That was a good scout.
Yeah, that was a good scowl, too. As I read the district engineer agreement that we have with Tetra Tech, and I'm assuming that this was one that was done off after ones before, if we do any subcontracting of work associated with a project, it has to be under him. This is the
I've
way I
not
read
reviewed
this.
it. I've not re-reviewed it.
It's the way I read this. That is absurd. Why do we want to go out and pay the middleman's markup? If Danny's firm can't do, for example, surveying, and he subs it, or bathymetric, why do we want him responsible for that? Because he's going to, if he doesn't, he's crazy, he's going to mark it up 10, 15% to pass through.
And I would have to because it's a
What-
liability.
It's sort of like Fortiline, yeah.
Yeah.
Why are what was the idea behind doing that unless it was one-stop shopping?
Well, the problem is that I don't think you'll find, I mean, we're 16,000 strong, and you're not going to find too many people that do 100% of everything. And personally, I would prefer that work that we don't do didn't come under us.
Well, the thing is that Chris is hamstrung by this, that if we go out to do something that's associated with the task you're doing, i.e. reviewing the as-bills, and we have these elevation checks, the only way, as I see it in reading this, is that we have to hire, Danny's got to hire the surveyor.
And what is it?
This is his engineering agreement.
Although Danny can waive that requirement if you want.
That's what I was going to say. If I can waive that.
I'm all for that. Well, if that's the case, then we can get past that hurdle real quick. But then we get back to Chris, and he's got the limitation of the $10,000. How do we get
Well-
around,
Well, once again,
how do
this
we
is
get
what-
around the bidding, Tony?
Recognizing that the limitation is just between board meetings. If the board authorizes the expenditure up to X number of dollars to perform Y services, the board can do that. In other words, that's between meetings, that ability to go out and buy stuff as needed, that's what that's for.
So-
So you don't have to wait, if something comes up and it needs immediate attention, the manager can go out and acquire those services.
From within a range.
So then
Correct,
Chris is
within a
free,
range.
Chris is free then to go out and retain a surveyor to do that, and we don't have to worry about this agreement of it going through
If he
him.
waives it for that particular scope, just to make sure, and then it comes back to the board for ratification at the next board meeting, so the board knows what's going on.
Because
But the
that's,
work can transpire.
Or the
just be
contract can begin.
ratified at the next meeting.
because we have.
Correct, the contract can be entered into, and the proposal signed.
Because we have things that are holding us up, and it's right now surveying. We need surveying of Hampton Park to complete the as-built check, and we need surveying of the other ponds, more importantly, Pelican Preserve, to verify that these weirs were built right into the right elevations before we even go back and start figuring out what a solution is to avoid the problem we had this last
The
summer.
one caveat, though, is too, there is a cost ceiling in the CCNA, so that's out there, that's a state issue that can't be waived.
What is that number? So we just have it for the record.
Well, it all depends.
Because it's not associated with a construction project. That's the problem.
A planning or studying activity is 35,000, I believe.
Oh, well, we're not going to be anywhere near that.
Why, let's just throw this out there. Why is the district going to pay for surveying these lakes in Hampton Park? Why are you asking the
Let me
district
ask you
to
back
pay
a
that?
question. How well do you want to trust the as-bills of a firm that's lied to you already?
Well.
I don't want to go out on that
that's your-
limb.
I mean, I'll just.
Wait,
say
wait,
that's
don't go
your
down that road,
opinion.
because I think
That's
my
your opinion.
my concern was ratified by the code enforcement that threw out all
Yeah,
14 ponds.
I don't have any problem agreeing with code enforcement
It's
has gone
checking-
out there and
it's-
reviewed it.
If it would have not been for the fact that we had somebody tell the state and the county, they falsified the state and county that work was done right. It wasn't done right. A blind man could see it.
So, Ed, what-
So why would we want to trust them to us then go out and accept it and then come in with a non-compliance order that says, oh, Gateway, you bought it, go fix it.
Now, with the survey.
It's not worth it.
Do we need to have the repair, do we want for the repair work that code enforcement has requested to be done first before we do the survey?
They're totally separate. The work that code enforcement's coming out with is basically littoral related. A portion of it will be construction related, and that has to do with the slopes. But we don't, they have told us, we've got as-bills right now. We've got that high of as-bills certifying that all the work was done in accordance with the plans and specs. Went right over to Jim Brand's backyard with code enforcement, standing there on the pond, looking at it, and her deal was, this ain't 4-1. That's the problem we've got. I don't know what's happened in the past here, but I've got a real good guess. We were easy on these guys, and we bought and accepted, and that's why we have the nightmare we've got. We accepted everything that the developer brought in here and his engineer said was built right.
so what you're saying, Ed, if I'm clear.
And I don't believe him anymore.
So we need to conduct a survey to
Verify elevations.
or validate elevations.
Correct.
In
Two,
or- in order to
Hampton Park
accept-
and the rest of our flowway.
in order
Yeah.
to accept or provide some stipulations for conditions.
If the
to accept.
survey that Chris is going to get, well, we had Stantec, but they dropped the ball. They didn't get the work done. It's that simple. They were supposed to have this done, what, a month ago?
About 30 weeks ago.
And they dropped the ball. They haven't even come out and done the cross-sections
No, we
yet.
haven't paid them anything, right?
Well, I assume we've just paid them for what they did. They did 8 street elevations, and that's it. But the issue is that if we go out and accept these, right now, the only thing that we have are the as-bills themselves.
Yeah.
And the only thing that Danny can do is look at them, yep, they say they're 4-1, accept them. Well, we've learned more than that in the last 6 months.
So do we need to find someone else to do the work, or is this company planning on finishing the work?
We're supposed to be out this week. They had a guy go down, got sick over Christmas.
This is like a broken record.
Do we know what's the, do we have an estimate on what we think this is gonna be? Is it around 15, 20?
It wasn't that much. What was it?
4,800.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's not a big
Oh,
ticket
so
item.
it was
It's
even
not a
under
big ticket.
$10,000, so what is this?
It's not, but he's getting a runaround from the firm. They're not getting the work done.
No, I thought there was something that we needed because the estimate was above 10K to.
Oh,
Okay,
well,
so it was
that's
something
separate issue,
different. Okay.
separate
Yeah,
issue,
got it.
separate
Okay.
issue. So we need to get that done so that we can get the as-bills. If we could take and get that elevation information and it confirms that there are no busts on the elevation, that takes this thing back down to where it's just a littoral issue. I say that because it ain't gonna happen. We already know
And that
that
sounds
there
like a
are
just
busts
do it,
and
so-
elevations out there. It was one of those things, it's sort of like, come and find me if you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we need the numbers to do it.
We really, can we decide what we're gonna do? Because we've got to move this meeting along. We haven't even made it to staff reports yet.
Well-
We got a lot of stuff ahead of us
We
yet to
we
get
got some
done.
other things though, Margaret. There's some other issues, and I want to get a clarification just so that everybody understands it. I don't know that the whole board had access to this, and I want to get Chris to explain it because we've got a situation going here. We've sent to Tetra Tech an email that basically indicates, and I want to make sure that I understand it, that they are not to do any further work or billing on general fund, waterway management, or other related work to the South SWMS system. I want to make sure that I understand that, is if we're not using them for our engineering work, because we've got a lot of engineering work coming up. What is our plan? Because we have a contract through December of 2018 with Tetra Tech. What am I,
Where did
What am I
you see
missing here?
this memo?
this is on an email from Chris to Danny.
And that was basically after we had that billing dispute with some charges that were made, and there wasn't a task order or approval for it that were related to that project. He said he did it in anticipation.
This is on the permit,
Right.
what do you call it, South Florida Water Management District permit transfers?
And my thing was, it was done in anticipation and good faith, and if I'm gonna sign off on a task order, a charge, I want a task order or something to base it on, not, we felt like this was a good idea, and $7,000 later. And I'm not quite sure what the work product's gonna be for that amount, but that's, I was just stopping it right there and saying.
Okay, so it was a limited order. Okay, because other engineering stuff, we're still on the boat. Okay. That was a clarification I wanted.
And in fairness, Chris should be made aware of projects going on, and he should be able to authorize any work that's being done, not a request made or something is getting worked on and Chris doesn't know anything about it, because he's got to.
That would be
eventually
simplified
sign off.
if we can take and get out of this Mother May ideal and give him the authority he needs to do the job. This is just absurd. We can't be sitting here and running this deal on a 2-week basis. There's too many things happening.
And I agree.
They're time sensitive.
Well, I'm a little confused still, because I'd asked the question, what is meant by using other consultants? Is that to do engineering work? And the response was similar to the using WSP for the water use permitting work. We will use other engineers, planners, and surveyors for specific tasks. So I think it still gets back to your question, because I don't read that as regarding the one item that we had on the issue of the water management's question of certification.
Well,
That
I
just says to
brought
be
it up just to
blanket.
take and get the deal on the table. That is, if we're going to take and go out for an RFP for engineers, we've got a real, I had this when I was doing work. You end up in a nightmare in these kind of projects where, like us, we've got 5, 6, 7, 8 tasks going that are going to take time to do. And you bring in somebody else, you're going to have an overlap, and it isn't going to be pretty. I can tell you that right now.
It can be just
can
pretty
be-
as punch if you schedule it out.
But Bill, it doesn't work that way.
Oh, hell, it doesn't. I've done it myself for years.
You ran a consulting engineering firm?
Oh, I did a lot of work.
It doesn't work that way in consulting engineering on this type of basis. Just look at what we've got right now. We've got projects that have timelines that go out a year and a half. We have others that go out there 60 days. We have some that go
That's why you
120.
have to have it on a per chart, so you know what you're dealing with. And Doug
I
made that point a few minutes ago, and I think it's a perfect one.
understand that. I'm just trying to bring up an issue that if we are going to take, it may be that we're not planning on doing an RFQ, that we're just going to have a continuation. I'm just asking the question, because I'm reading what Danny is saying also. Are we going to do other consultants? Because the contract indicates that they are the firm that we have selected. They are the firm that we have selected. Are we going to make a change, or how are we doing that?
I think for things like the surveying, if we're gonna find someone else to do the surveying.
I'm not talking surveying, I'm talking engineering.
Then he is gonna allow us to use somebody else to do the work.
That wasn't my question. My question is the engineering work. Are we sticking with Tetra Tech to do the engineering work?
Why would we not?
So for Chris,
I
to
would
clarify
agree.
this was just for the one where work was done, a bill was submitted, and there was no task authorization. And so what we need is task authorization so that you're aware of work that's being done. And that was all you're requesting.
I think what Chris needs is just to have Danny supply to him the work product that justified $7,200. And then come back here with what's the word I want, task authorization to either shut it off of where it's at and/or complete it. Our problem is I don't think we can shut it off because we're under the gun from the state to get these transfers done.
Well, in the past, this would have been considered a general engineering item. And we have, I think, 9 different task items that are set up based on your budget. So if there was a water management related item, which surface water management district, we would move forward with those in good faith. In this case, Chris said no. He wanted that pulled from the invoice and wanted the task authorization brought back before the board, which I'm more than happy
We
to
can do.
I'll do that and bring it before the board, and after it's authorized, then I can give that work product. But essentially, I haven't been paid for a work product, so I'll produce the work
I
product
think
once we're done.
for
I have-
budgeting purposes, we're holding Chris responsible for the money that's flowing out the door. And so in good faith, you need to let him know when you're working on something.
And I thought it's my mistake. It's my mistake. I'll bring it back before the board, and, this will all go away. Of course, that's
This-
not how I
this-
interpreted the email.
This
at all.
is another one that we're under the gun from South Florida Water Management. We're going to be going to South Florida to ask for some things coming up, to ask for some things.
Says you.
I'm
Now,
sorry.
you've got all of this stuff in your head, and you're working
No, I've talked
behind
about
the
it every-
scenes
I've
with
talked-
everybody else.
I've talked about it
and
in every
coming-
meeting.
Coming to
Chris?
this board and telling us what's gonna happen, and it's getting very tiresome.
South Florida Water Management District told us, Bill, we have a letter from them. They identified
Oh, I've
these
heard about
transfers.
that letter for you
No,
two or
And-
three
we got it,
times.
we got it, what, November
I'm gonna-
15th or something?
I'm gonna cut the conversation here. Danny's working on it. He's working with South Florida Water Management. You're not working on it.
No, I've been directed not to work on it. I'm working on preparing a task authorization for the work that we've already done, but we're doing nothing further. I
Which raises
understand
my
that
question,
staff is
who's
working
doing the
on it.
work?
So, submit your task authorization. It's $7,200. And when he gets the task authorization, I'm assuming you can approve it. It's less than the $10,000.
Well, he's got to see the work product.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
And he
but just
will.
to clarify, that gets us to what we've done. Now, the work we did was in anticipation of that letter. It does not address where you are moving forward with that letter. So,
Let him know what the next stage is of what you're gonna be working on to get us in compliance with South Florida Water Management.
okay, we'll need to sit down and meet. We'll just need to sit down and meet. I mean, we've requested a meeting. We'll just need to sit down and do that, because I need direction on where, Chris wants us to go with it. So we can-
And my thing is on it, I don't care where we want to go, I want to know who's leading us there. Because that permit issue is one that's hanging over our heads.
And so
They want
far,
that-
we've been
they want that
directed not to.
resolved.
So if direction is for us to work that out, we'll move forward with it. That's what we'll do.
Work that out with management so he's aware of what you're working on
Okay.
and we can move that project forward.
Perfect.
And did anyone else have any questions for Danny? Thank you.
No.
With that, Madam Chair, I have no other items. May I be excused?
Yes.
By
Yes,
all-
you may.
By all means.
We'd all like that. Staff reports, district manager.
Thank you. Just briefly, our utility rate study's underway. I have some notes from the consultant on there. We plan to have the draft coming to the board in February and plan on scheduling a rate hearing in March to address those issues. We also met with the Gateway Trinity Lutheran Church folks. They want to add 10,000 square feet approximately to their facility. They're also looking at a second access entry off of Eagle Point Drive, because with that expansion and the size of the building, they can't just use Girl Scout to get in and out. So they're working with the people in Eagle Point.
Since they have the budding street, and there's no POA, HOA, or anything governing them, why did they have to come and ask us for that?
They just came in for a preliminary meeting on development approval. You know, you need some additional utility connections and,
Well, I
just
know they get
working with them.
stormwater issues.
And I had also asked them at the same time for some additional easement property for the main lift station there, so we can fence it and put a pump in and do the upgrades. So we're working that at the same time. We've been meeting regularly with Lee County Utilities staff, had a meeting December 11th to discuss just mutual issues. And we've also been working with FEMA on reimbursement for damages and plan to have a submittal by January 28th. So it's like going to Vegas, you don't know what you're gonna get back, but we're doing all the paperwork and taking steps, so in the future, we're prepared to have all that paperwork ready while we're in the field during the disasters. And with the state revolving loan fund, we did get the application out, and it was signed to the DEP. We expect to have it back in the next 2, possibly as much as 3 weeks. As soon as we have that back, we'll file for the reimbursement.
Very good.
Couple of things, Margaret. I'm continuing to get complaints, and I know you guys are doing everything you can, but that parking on Gateway Greens, that school is ignoring us big time. They could care less. And my
On the
last
corner?
phone,
The Kinderlane on the corner?
no.
Oh, the high
Gateway
school.
Charter.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call from a person that I would not have wanted the phone call from that can cause a lot of grief for us if we don't do something, because the county owns the road. The issue is that their recommendation was we go down there and put in some landscaping, and,
They'll just
Just-
drive
Just
right
drive
over
right
it.
over it.
well, then we start sending bills to the school. But we got, that's a problem, and then the other problem is that, and it's a great place to eat, but Saucy Meatballs, they're pulling their cars right into the grass and right under the road right away on both Gateway Boulevard and on Commerce Lakes Drive to be able to facilitate the overflow of traffic. And we can't do that. Somebody's going to back out of that place off of Gateway Boulevard and going to get rear-ended. And guess
That's a
who's?
problem for law enforcement. That is not our problem.
We can go bury our head in the sand, I guess. That's our right-of-way though, Bill, and landscaping.
It is, enforcement is not our problem.
Mr. Tinkle, with both these issues, I've been in conversation with Lee County Department of Transportation regarding Gateway Charter. They're going to be posting no parking signs, so law enforcement can start writing tickets.
Great.
And with regards to the Saucy Meatball, I've talked to the owners, but I will have a conversation. That's a Lee County DOT issue. If people are parking in the right of way and they deem it to be a safety issue, then County DOT will address that with the
But
property
it's our
owner.
landscaping they're tearing up. We're paying for it.
I will then have the conversation to ask them to put no parking signs
Yeah.
in front of there. So
And
law
I don't have an
enforcement
answer
can
for a
deal with it.
solution. I mean, they've got a deal there where it's popular, and there's just no place to park. The lot's not big enough for the number of seats they have. The other one I've got is for Chris, and we've talked about this, is the Gateway Golf and Country Club are moving in a position to be selling. And it's my understanding, and Tony, this may go back to your days, that we have wells and very possibly transmission lines that I don't know who owns it. You had mentioned to me the possibility that the country club owns it. I think that if it is, the new owner is going to want those wells. And I guess the question is what do we need to do to verify who's the owner of this stuff that was done years ago?
Sure, and the permit is the name on the Water Management District permit is the Gateway Golf Club.
Yeah, it doesn't even, it's not even
What
correct.
entity that is, but the permits are there, the wells are in place, the transmission line is there, the wells haven't been used in a long
What's your
time.
understanding of who owns that?
I can't
Who
recall
actually
if-
owns it?
I don't recall, and that's part of what a survey would disclose, because there should be
This
easements.
isn't in the, well, yes, it is in the FPL easement.
That would, I mean, that would just, a good Alta survey would show all easements, because the title commitment would pull all documents affecting title.
But the problem is that they sell it and it comes up, somebody's gonna want access to it. I wanna get that off.
Where's the line located, the well?
Right now, there's what, 3 wells, 4 wells that are interconnected. The line goes up the FPL easement and goes straight across into Pinecrest, across Gateway Boulevard, right down the middle of Gateway Greens Drive, all the way to the country club and straight into one of the ponds.
Can you send me an aerial marking that off, or if you could?
Yeah, we have a drawing of it.
Yeah, we
if
have
you
a
could,
drawing.
if you can send that to me.
But my question is not the location, my question is who owns it?
That's what,
Yeah.
but if I see the location, help me retrieve some documents.
The last one is, and this might be Mike, is we talked at the last meeting about park consultants. Have we gotten anywhere with identifying consultants that can be doing the park work?
I was supposed to have a meeting with Mr. Banks. We were supposed to talk about some of these things, but our meeting got postponed.
Okay, I want to get that going. We got to get a consultant on board.
Yeah, we'll address it.
Okay. That's all.
Public Works Manager. Don't sit down.
Well, you've already been apprised of the Hampton Park code enforcement activity. It was very exciting. The Florida League of Cities, after the hurricane, a gentleman came out who does the insurance work for us. So he did a safety review of basically of the district. We went and looked at the areas that were damaged. We looked at various things we could do to improve safety of the building and our facilities. We looked at lift stations. We looked at this facility extensively. We went up to the pool, and he gave us a report that we have, if any of you would, or I could transmit it to you, that suggested some different things that we could do to enhance safety for the district property.
Why don't you forward that to each of the board members so that we all have it?
Also been very busy with FEMA, working with Chris and the FEMA representative. We went out last week all over the district through Stony Brook. We went out to the fish barrier, and that's one of the things that's on the list, of fish barrier replacement, where one of the things that came up in talking with their environmentalists is that we might be able to modify our South Florida water management permit to actually remove the fish barrier so we don't have to rebuild it a fourth time. I understand that it's been destroyed 3 times, but this last time was the 3rd time it's been damaged and had to be removed.
Which required by the permit, though, so you're asking for a modification.
Very big fish.
Correct. I have set up a meeting with the Water Management District and the Florida FWC to see if we can actually remove that requirement of the permit. And talking with the gentleman who was part of the FEMA team, he said that the use of the grass carp does not require the gates that we have now. That was something that was done 10, 12 years ago, when the sterilization of the fish, the carp, was not as good as it is now. With the science they have in place and the confidence that they have with the fish sterilization, the barriers are not needed.
What about the Placos?
The
That was
reason
my
for the fish
understanding,
barrier
was another-
is for the grass carp.
I know that, but is the Placos a problem? Because,
Oh, they're a problem everywhere.
yeah, do they want it contained?
He did not
Okay.
say that. We actually talked about maybe some different methods of going into the lakes and doing fish roundups to reduce the populations. And then the last thing I had
Let
was...
me know if you need a couple boys to help out.
Keep busy.
Come to my house.
The last thing I had was just a review of the, we sat down with the event planner for the holiday party we had over here. I know 1 or 2 of you made it over here, and just wanted to see what your comments were and what you thought, how it went.
Do it again. It was very good. It was very good.
She did a really good
It was
job.
very
And
good.
we had a good turnout, and from
Yeah.
everything that I heard was very positive. I'd probably like to get some more food trucks out there, but
But it was very good. Very
Yeah.
well done.
There were a lot of residents there, yeah, and they were all enjoying themselves, it was.
Right.
Thank you, Mike.
Wait,
I'm sorry.
I have one question for Mike, I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to ask you before the meeting. Have we put out the bid for the landscaping yet?
The landscaping bid is on. It's not out yet, but I've got all the stuff that we're going to be putting it out.
Just the work we authorized to Precy?
No,
No.
no, this is
RFP.
the
Oh,
landscape.
RFP.
This is for cutting grass.
3-year contract.
Okay.
Do you know
landscape.
about when you'll,
I'm going to shoot for next week.
okay, thank you,
You're talking about
and
the,
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
you're talking about the 3-year contract.
Anybody
Is this
else?
Mainscape?
Yeah.
Mainscape.
Mainscape contract, okay.
Cutting grass.
Any other questions for Mike? Utility manager, you're up next. Thank you for waiting.
Good evening, Kenny Hall, Utility Manager. To go over, as part of the 2018 capital improvement, we put in our one new high service 150 horsepower irrigation pump is in, online, and running right now. It's going to be in the lead position for the next 2 weeks. Runs great. This is pump 3 in a series of 5 that is up and running now. One more in the 2018 budget is scheduled, so that will leave us 150 horsepower pump left to upgrade, and we will have 5 brand new 150 horsepower pumps within 2-3 years of each other. Daniels Preserve. I kind of wanted to bring this one to you guys to let you know this has morphed into a lot more than we anticipated. We have gone through about 75% of this community. Our guys keep finding, we have to date 9 that we have found buried within under a foot of dirt with no lid, no nothing, straight into our system.
Cleanouts?
What are you talking about?
The sewer cleanouts.
Okay.
They are been completely buried. We have found them in such disrepair. Currently, we are about 75% done with this community, and we've replaced 29 of these sewer lids.
Are these cleanouts at the point of where we transition from our right-of-way
4
to
6.
theirs?
Yep, goes right into the
And
sanitary
they've
sewer.
been buried by their landscaping?
They've been buried for any number of reasons. We've found one almost 2 feet deep that had to be completely cut out and raised.
And it didn't
reset.
have
Didn't have
a
a
solvent well cap or a cap?
Didn't even know it existed. And we found
Is
constriction.
it one per house or one for 2 houses?
It depends. The majority of them are dual connections, but we do have, wherever you find a stormwater drain, where the storm sewer is, you'll find a single connection.
Are the as-bills working for you in locating them?
Yes, we've used them, but there again, you've got, upwards of 9 to 10 years of dirt sitting on top of them. And we found them layered, where they've sodded the lawn, and then it's grown over, and then sodded it again, and then you got another grow over, and we've literally up to my knees. I took this to the HOA because the reason what triggered it was we were finding sand in the sanitary sewer. Just doing general opening up of the sanitary sewer and looking where everything was, and we were finding sand build up. And then we started poking around, and then
Usually rat holes above it.
yeah, and say with the storm and what we learned with Stony Brook and Magnolia Lakes is that when they go underwater, it completely inundates the sanitary sewer. So that's what sparked
So
the
you
whole
think
thing.
same thing's up there?
Oh yeah, most definitely. To find that many, to say we're at 29 right now.
That's got to be a violation of the sewer use ordinance.
And it's turned into an exercise. We have BJ Enterprises that does the work. They're giving us very special rates to do each one of them. To
They do the locates and then the repair?
we locate them, we find them, we dig them up and say, okay, this has got to be. Some of them are safety issues. They're so deep that you cannot. It's just you cannot leave a hole in somebody's front yard this deep. And it's pads that are just completely buried, no caps, they're cracked or whatever. There's all kinds of
Did
scenarios.
the plans call for a pad around the cleanout?
Yes, some of them do, some of them do not. Some of them, on the single ones, you'll find just the PVC pipe sticking up. The dual ones usually always have a concrete pad. When I went to the HOA meeting, I told them what was going on and got them to include it into their maintenance plan. So their landscapers or whomever's doing their lawn to make sure that this is kept.
Stays.
You can see it. We've cleared it out. We've put new concrete on it. We've painted it bright green. You can't miss it. Please don't let it get buried.
Screwed
This is-
connection?
Yes. So we are, I had our guys go out and scout, and they anticipated at least another 10 more that are probably in the works that are gonna need to be. And as we dig them up, the residents don't even know what they are. And we have to explain it to them, and then we have some that want them raised, they're too low, it becomes a trip hazard, and it has most definitely gotten into the sanitary sewer. We found constrictions in 3 different points where we're finding just big piles of sand running through, especially where your 45 degrees are right there. There's just
Why?
piles and piles of sticks, and it's just, that's what that's turned into. And Pete has gone over to the pool as part of it, and we've hired a new staff person. He will be starting on January 17th. He's coming from golf course maintenance. He's coming in as a field operator. He's coming in as a trainee. And he starts on the 17th.
Golf course maintenance where?
Cypress Lakes. That's where he works right now. And lastly, our town hall meeting for Matarita, the water issue, is scheduled for January 16th at 1:30 p.m. We're all planning to attend that one. The issue with Matarita has finally come to a head. I've got 2 residents in Matarita that have been really working with me. We thought we found a really good fix for the problem through his P-traps. And when I first brought the problem, he brought the problem to me. It was all over the house. He had it in his, you know, it was just everywhere. We went through I went through the whole entire scenario of what I've come across in my time with the district, and we ended up in his back bathroom, the dual sink, which is usually always the culprit of the problem. That's where it usually we always end up, and we came to the P-traps are the problem. I spoke to him. He called me this morning because we've been following back and forth with each other, and he said, no, it is not the P-traps. He's convinced now. To give you kind of a history on it, it's the first draw. Meaning when we stand in that bathroom, you turn that lever, you put a cup in there, catch that water, you smell it. I mean, there's a distinctive odor there. Turn it back on, let the water run, put it back in the cup, smell it, no smell. You can do that 3 or 4 times, no smell. That first draw is definitely got a smell to it. And I have done research. We just met with Lee County. I put it in front of them, see if they had any idea. I looked through pretty much every municipality and county organization and found one government entity that has dealt with this problem before, and that is Manatee County. And I called and talked to my counterpart, their utility manager, and we talked for about 25 minutes. And if you look on their website, it is such a problem, they have it on their website, and they have all the issues. And when you get to the smelly water, sulfury, rotten egg smell on their website, it is word for word what we are dealing with in Matarita and now Prado. And we talked at length about what did you do, what is your scenarios,
This was potable water.
Potable water.
What did they find?
They found that really, he said, we don't do anything. We'll go out after we have a whole list of items that we ask them to do. You know, flush your lines, flush your hot water heater, and various other things. What it came down to was there is a white line when it comes out of the wall. If you look under the sink where that water, the hot water and the cold water come in, there's a white line that goes into the faucet. And they even say it on their website that some residents, and like he put it to me, he said, well, it depends on how much the resident how far he wants to go. If they want to change that line, they've had good success where they'll change the line coming out of the wall and into the faucet, and that'll make the problem go away. He said 333 was very effective. That's another thing that's on their website. Flush the line 3 times a day for 3 minutes for 3 days straight. He said, and that seems to clear. It's a clear line. So when you open up this drain and look down there, you'll see the connection line. It's a clear line. He said that it seems to have been their biggest issue. Once they remove that, and say the customer or the resident that I've been working with is replacing it right now. We're going to follow up on it in the morning, and he'll let me know if it is effective, and that is a viable option. Residual, and just I wanted to throw this one at you too. Where I think and what we think is one of the leading issues to this is that when that meter is installed at that house, and this is a perfect example, we have a house on Prado that has been with a water meter. The system has been charged for almost 6 months, and we have about 1,500 gallons of water that has moved through that system. This is a perfect example. This meter was installed 5/20 of this year, and as you can see on our AMI system, the graphs, there is no movement. WCI owns 52 of these that are not for sale. They're for sale, but they are sitting vacant. No water is moving through them. So we believe, and as he kind of concurred, and I also talked to the lab supervisor for the Manatee County, and he asked me, what was the situation was, and it's the same thing that they have. There's a large development. Prado is a good example. You have 330 scheduled units. We have 82 residents living in there. Off of 300, and of those, 52 of them WCI owns that are metered, charged, water sitting in there. This one right here, I confirmed. I had one of our field guys go out there right before this meeting and turn on the back hose bed and said, is there water coming out of that? Yes. That means that line is charged. So for almost 7 months, this house has just sat there with little to no usage. We do have some of them in there where if they're building in the area, they'll put a three-point hose connection, and that's where they'll draw their water from. So you'll get, or they'll fill the pull-up and you'll see 25,000 gallons, and then drops off, and you won't see any movement for 2 weeks. So we think and they kind of concurred, yeah, that's probably where the problem is starting. And it's
Is it, so, hold on. The problem, it's stagnant. The water's not
Part of
moving
the
and it's
problem, yeah.
causing,
Yes.
long-term residual.
And then residual, like I say, with Prado, 330 units, we have 10-inch line, and Pistoia is another great example. You have no accounts on this line. The water that is there to provide for those houses is there, but there's nobody there to pull from it.
Yeah.
So their solution, as they put it, was to flush. Manatee County spends dumps over or upwards of 100 million gallons of potable water a year, flushing their lines to keep the residual to the point where it's where they want it.
100 million.
100 million gallons. And when he explained that to me, I was kind of like, 100 million gallons. And he said, I'm directed to do it, so that's what we do. They turn fire hydrants on in certain areas and leave them on. 2-3 days, the fire hydrant is sitting there flushing out, and they have 22 auto flows throughout their distribution system that come on for 4 or 5 hours at night that automatically come on and just dump the water down their drains to keep the residual.
Well,
Because
we get that water line looped from Pistoia through Arborwood Phase 3 down into Gateway Greens to where we have it looped. That should help that, but when's that going to happen?
We don't know. And we've been very vigilant with Pistoia because we figured once Matarita was built out, this problem would kind of evaporate and go away. No, is not. And as with the health department, they've been down there so many times and have sampled so many times. And if the health department they're the authority. And if they come down there and tell you the water's good, obviously there's an issue. And it's usually isolated. In the single-family homes, it's almost always the double bathroom and the master bedroom. That, one of those things. And I've seen it where both of them, and one of them will, and one of them won't. And it's just the first straw. Turn it on, hit that water, smell it. There's a smell there. Close it, dump the water out, turn the water back on, smell it. Nothing. Fine. And they've isolated it down to that line. That's what they seem to think. They don't go in the house until they're ordered to go into the house to investigate. But usually they won't even go in there and look.
So you'll continue working
Yes,
on that?
we've been trying to be very vigilant with it. And I've got 3 residents in Matarita that are very helpful and are very interested. And like I said, when I talked to Mr. Rico this morning, he is going to change that line.
Okay.
He's going to do it on an experiment and see what happens, and he'll let me know in the morning. And he's very vigilant.
That'll
So,
be good.
Yeah.
Who's doing it used to be Pete and Mary that would be doing the drive arounds, and if they saw stuff, they would stop, fix it. Who's doing that type of thing now? And specifically what I'm referring to is I see a lot of our MIUs, meter pits, pulled out upside down.
We've never figured out what they're doing. So what we did when we met with WCI with the water theft issue is that when they call for the meter, they don't install the MIU anymore. We just put the meter in there. That way they can take the lid and play frisbee with it.
I'm
But
talking
they are
about.
tearing them over and
I'm
it'll
talking about
discharge.
throughout Gateway. You can
Yeah.
drive down a street and you will see lids turned over. And for what reason, I
Homeowners
have
do it,
no idea.
landscapers do it. I mean, that's one of the
I don't get it.
the biggest issues with that
But
MIU
we used to
system
have
is
somebody
that-
driving that saw that stuff. Do we have somebody
Sure,
that does
if
that?
we see it, we'll
Okay.
jump out and fix it, but yeah.
We don't have it anymore because no one's going around checking the meters. That's why we went to the system.
Well, my problem is that we all heard about and learned a lesson about meters being or batteries being upside down. I would think that they are upside down very long, they're gonna be dead.
Yeah. I'd like to get them off that lid altogether, but with those boxes and that cast iron lid, it generally will not go for it. They said if it's a standard plastic lid, absolutely, get it off the lid, and then that's 80% of your problem right there. They lift that lid up, throw it down, the battery starts discharging. They come back, they put it back on, and they just drop it. And there's $187 in MIUs hanging off these cast iron 60-pound lids. There's no way to properly open it and close it. There's no latch. You can't just lift it up so it sits up on like a regular standard box. You can't do that. It just ends up on the ground.
Future project.
Yeah. Future project. Thank you, Kenny.
You are.
It's supposed to go 10 years, not 2.
Accounting and Finance Manager. And thank you for your patience.
No problem. The only thing I have for you guys is the outsourcing of payroll. This was, I think, already approved by the board April or May of last year. It got cut off, so I reached out to the same ADP Paychecks. They were the big ones, and Paychecks came back pretty competitive. So we just want to get that going. We were kind of waiting until the turn of the year because it makes it much easier for everything we have to provide them. So basically just to authorize me to execute all that on the behalf of the district.
Is this the first time?
The first time it'll be outsourced?
Yeah.
As far as I know.
It's
yeah.
because we
Yeah.
approved it. So
Yeah.
this is the
It
actual
was approved and then April
execution
had-
of that.
This is the implementation.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So
There
it's a
wasn't
different.
And so you were looking at ADP and Paycheck, and you're going with Paycheck?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, are you,
And-
you're gonna use ADP?
No,
Paycheck.
Paycheck.
Oh,
Do we need a motion?
and they're
on this?
starting 1/1.
No, our payroll, it's gonna start on our next payroll, so we have a payroll right now that's running through, it ran through December into January. They're gonna take over the second one of the year. That way we just have to provide all the year-to-date stuff.
Okay.
You don't need a motion since we already approved
Wait
it?
just a second, just one second. please. Are they gonna have a 4 years tax when they start? I mean, they're gonna give a 4 years of 18 tax when they get started?
Yeah, everything will just transition right over. So ADP, I believe, is who? No,
We do it.
you guys
We
do
will
each
turn
other.
over the information to them for everything that we pay for 2018. They will load it into their system, so they will have a full year 2018 when they're done.
IRS will get the report.
Yeah. They'll prepare our year-end reports like the W-2s and everything for our staff
1090.
for
For
17.
2017.
17 is take care of.
W3s, W2s.
Do we don't
So
need a
we're-
motion since we're already
No.
done it?
No.
It's a weird.
So-
Just one clarification that came in, Chairman.
Oh,
You've corrected, they had the district's name wrong throughout.
and you want
It
Gateway
is,
Services
the
Community?
Gateway Services District does not exist. It's Gateway Services Community Development District.
Okay, and I wrote that down. I went back and found our tax form, because he did tell me it had to be exactly what was with the IRS. So I'll change that to him.
Great,
He said
thanks.
he can type it. and
Okay.
we'll be good to go.
Thanks, Mike.
Where are we, and maybe this isn't yours, but you've worked with them, when are we going to switch over to monthly billing?
Monthly billing for,
Water and sewer?
that would not be me.
We talked, you know, that was one of the things that we were
I
selling
do
on this, and I
recall that.
wondered we've gone through the learning deal. Are we ready to switch over to monthly billing?
We'll bring that up with the rate case.
That's what I
and
thought.
bring
Good
it
deal.
forward and
Good point.
Offer that option.
So I'm assuming that, Stephen, you're okay with this and we'll be able to switch this over without any
Yeah, I mean,
difficulties?
the payroll was taken out of our scope during the reorganization anyway, so.
Okay,
And I've talked to Paula, and she said she would be fine with the timeline and everything, so.
okay.
Just
Kathy?
the exact date that this will happen?
It'll be, I'll have to look at the calendar, but it'll be a payroll starting, I don't know if you have one up, but our payrolls, we start a new payroll next Wednesday, so they'll take over that one. It is a little process where they come in, we supply the RT6 they need and that stuff, and then they'll actually process our second payroll in January,
Okay.
which will be right around the 24th, I believe.
Are all of our employees on automatic deposit?
As far as I know, they are, and I've gone through and gotten the, instead of having them fill out new forms, they gave me a form, which I think was actually in that agreement, that we can just use everything that we have on file now with their direct deposit information, and they'll take it over. So I went and got everybody's information, their address, their routing numbers and everything, and we give a letter to everybody when we go over to verify their information. So, and you guys will get one as well.
All right, you're authorized.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're at the consent agenda. Did anybody have anything they wanted to pull from the consent agenda?
4B.
2 hours behind.
I'm sorry?
4B.
4B? Okay, go ahead and tell us what.
Page
4
5 or page 78, whichever you want to look at. Line 154, just a typo error. It should be Mrs. and not Mr.
Oh, it sure should.
Okay.
So
Well,
with,
there's other things in there too. There's some duplications
Yeah,
in,
there's-
in those minutes. I don't know that it's enough to hold up the approval of them, but I think that whoever is preparing them, or Chris, ought to read them again before they're put to bed.
so with the idea that the minutes will be reviewed to take out any duplications and the correction of Mr. Flaherty to Mrs. Flaherty, do I have somebody that is willing to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're through the consent agenda. Hurricane Irma cleanup invoice, Metarita.
Can we do all these at once? They're routine, this is really routine stuff.
Action items?
Yeah, why can't we do them all, why can't we do them all at once, except for ones that people have to talk about?
And excluding I and K, I think that was.
I and
Except
K's
for I
done.
and K, we've already talked
Correct.
about.
The hurricane cleanup, that Met Tower, what is that, just an invoice? Yeah.
Okay.
I want to talk about assessment methodology, but other than that, I think this is all routine business.
The only thing I saw is on non-disturbance and encroachment
Yeah, CDE.
agreement 11994.
Tony's quick.
Chris, if you'll go to.
I'm sorry,
follow-
say again.
I agree with what Bill says, but I found.
119,
Cypress Links Drive 11994, if you pull that one up, I don't know what number it is.
B.
There's a typo in there that's critical. Can you pull that one up?
What page is
I don't know what page it is.
E,
It's number E.
that? 5E?
Okay, if you see, it says approved non-disturbance encroachment of 11914, and then it says staff recommends approval of 1181. It should be 11914, 11994 again. I think what they were doing is using one as a guide and didn't catch
Oh,
it.
it
Yeah.
should
Oh, that's
say,
right.
the address should say
Should match.
Gotcha.
Cypress Links, not,
Yeah, not Bend Pine Drive.
gotcha.
Okay.
Other than that, I agree with Bill. I would,
so I make the motion to approve action items A
Well.
through
oh,
G.
Yeah, let's do that.
And J or not?
Well, how about if we let Bill ask his question about the assessment methodology and
And then we might be
just
able to
do
do
them all?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. That's a good way to do it. Members of the board, a long time ago, an attorney told me not to ever ask a question that you don't know the answer to.
am I sitting close to him?
Yes. One of many attorneys that have said that to you.
And I have read what's in the agenda about this assessment methodology. And I'm not smart enough to know what we're getting into, but I have a feeling, I'm worried that we could be getting into something that we wish we didn't get into. And I'm wondering if there is a way of going slow on this thing until we know where it's likely headed before we're holding the tree on the edge of the cliff to try and
Bill.
get back up.
Bill, I read you like a book. I knew that was coming. I'm just the opposite. I've been fighting for this for 10 years to
I
do it.
understand- I understand,
Because
and
I
I-
think we're in a spot we don't want to be. But I totally agree with you on the next step. I think we need to have, once we get Russ brought in, and Russ was the guy that we used for the assessment methodology on the bond validation stuff. Very sharp, good guy, knows what he's doing. But I think we should have, I don't know if you want to call it a workshop or what, but have a chance to where everybody sits around with Russ and go through and find out exactly where this is going and what we would like to see before we get too far down the road. Because there are a lot of issues here that this could really help us on. We are still on the methodology that was done in 1986, and we were told to look at it in the first 5 years. Never looked at it. We are on an assessment methodology based on stormwater runoff that has nothing to do with roads, nothing to do with parks, nothing to do with anything that we do except stormwater. And that's a minor piece of our deal. So it needs to be done, but I totally agree. We need to have like a conceptual meeting with him and let him explain what the options are that we have to address on this, and just bounce it around before he takes off and then comes back with a $18,000 report that nobody's happy with.
So at how long do you think that consultation would take? Is it an hour?
Hour, 2 hours.
Okay. Is it possible that maybe we can do that with our DeSerbo workshop? Maybe work it in to that meeting?
I would suggest this be a separate meeting because the nature of it and the interest that the community's going to have in
Is
this.
it
Oh, no, it's open, but I think it's
Be a
best.
workshop. You could do that.
I think but I think a standalone be
These,
better.
these guys that do this, they have books and they have brochures that talks about all the things. There's a plethora of ways to do CDD billing.
So do
And we need to be able to see those, and I think when you see them, you'll find out, hey, we should have been doing this years ago. But you gotta take one step at a time.
So do we need to actually
And you wanna-
hire him?
Yes,
and
that's
then-
first step.
Then schedule, so we need to approve this tonight.
Yeah,
and
what
Yes.
I would
schedule a
suggest,
workshop.
correct, and I would suggest that the board authorizes an execution of the contract, that staff get with Russ to, tell him about it, discuss possible parameters for the initial report. That's typically how it works with the, engineers, manager, attorneys, however you want to designate. And then there is an initial conversation and a presentation to the board of just some of the conversation as to what approaches are available. And I think it's better to have a focused workshop just on this topic.
I do too.
Yeah, I
Keep in mind, he got pretty educated on us doing the bond validation. So he knows us, and he can come into that first meeting and I think answer the majority of the questions, but I think that's a great idea.
Okay. So,
So I'd make the motion that, or do you want to blend this in with the others? Or are you going to have this as a standalone motion?
why don't we do this as standalone since we're
I'll make the
doing-
motion to retain, I think it's our REEI, Russ Wire, for the methodology assessment.
And
work.
to,
To
and to
arrange a
schedule a
meeting.
workshop.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that one is done. Now do I have a motion to accept action items 5A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and J?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Oh, with the correction of that address
Yeah.
on that
Right.
one motion. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those are done. P-PAC, is P-PAC still here?
He's asleep.
He is.
Of course.
He's asleep. You have our written report, so I just,
Yeah.
if you have any questions, I'd be glad to address them, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Just one question, the long dialogue we had with WCI, will that play in Peoria over there?
Well, yeah, so far, I think we're,
Because if these aren't fixed, it's going to end up in that 002 account. I mean, there's just no doubt about it.
Well, of course, that's what we've been fighting the whole time. So we're well aware of it, and, our people are gonna go out, and Chris is gonna have P-PAC people with them to look at these things, and then it's gonna come back to you folks as to how to proceed with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May I make one statement?
Sure.
There was a column in the Wall Street Journal either this morning or yesterday. That Lennar is like the second largest home builder in the country, okay? This is nothing to them. They're arguing over not even peanuts as far as they're concerned. And I think that it's serious money to us, and I think we'll not let them off the hook.
Bill, I totally agree with you, but I think it's a little deeper than that on this one. It's, they came in and paid 680, not billion, million dollars for WCI. And between this one and Hampton Park, I don't think they did any due diligence to find out what happened. And the people that we're dealing with are not Lennar employees. They're carryovers from WCI. And I think what somebody's trying to do is cover their you-know-what on things that were done wrong.
I think that's what Bill's saying. He's saying hold him accountable.
And
Yeah.
it's, my deal is, it's not my problem, it's theirs.
Yeah.
So I think we do hold them
And
accountable.
the reason this thing is extended so long is for years, they
It's their
didn't do
deal.
anything.
They didn't do
just-
anything.
They just sat on it.
That's because they thought they
sat
could
on
walk
it,
in here and get a blank
and-
check.
And we were happy to have them sit on it.
Well, there was a time we would.
There was a time, that's what happened.
And on that note, we're going to be addressing in the near future some requisitions we received for work that was completed in 06, 08, or 13, 14.
Well, if we like
So-
what they're doing over there, we're gonna love Hampton Park, because they're gonna try the same thing over there.
Stay tuned.
Okay. Supervisor comments, Mrs. Flaherty,
No, Happy New Year.
Mr. Guy,
Happy New Year.
Mr. Tinkle.
Not that easy. Only one. The rate study, Chris, can we get a draft copy of it before it's presented? I don't want to come in here and be reading that. I'd like to read it before the meeting, such that when the consultant comes in, we have notes to go over with.
Yeah, that'll be a draft and a presentation, and then anything else we'll finalize it and bring it back the next month. So, yeah, plenty of time to review it.
And then again, follow it up, Mike can get a chance, and we've been snowed in holidays, get that park consultant deal going to where we can get that. These people are asking for stuff, and we need to do it. Oh, one other item. We've kicked the can down on the road, or we got forced to kick the can down the road on moving out. What is the possibility of these guys are in there working, and I wouldn't put up with it. That's like sardines in a can. Why can't we go get a mobile home or a office, whatever you call it,
Mobile office?
mobile office, put it out here and stop, that is absurd in there. That's not right. That is not right. And if we're not gonna do this building for a while, why are we punishing staff to live like that? Mike and Chris are up each other's noses. You can't lay a set of plans. You walk over to Chris's desk, you trip over everything.
Well, I think
That's ridiculous to
when's
have to
our
live
meeting?
like that.
These are-
To serve on February, Chris,
22nd.
February
February 22nd.
22nd.
But can we get some pricing on what a mobile home would, do we have to get a permit for that?
Yes. And a site plan probably modification to the
But
current
I
site
mean,
plan.
if we don't have, we got water available, we got sewer available, so those two are no-brainers. The only
Parking.
places where we're gonna set it.
And/or parking.
Can we just use one of the mobile homes or one of the RVs that are just sitting there? Can we figure out some kind of rental agreement or something?
Well, my point is
Like Los Angeles.
can we figure out what a dollar value, that's ridiculous living like that.
Yeah.
It's not right.
You can give us an idea how much you think that'll be to do what he's suggesting.
Staff should not have to
Or some
work under those
alternative,
conditions.
Whatever, if there's an alternative.
Big
Give us
tents.
an idea.
Well, what Chris needs like a conference table and a conference room where he can
He
bring
does.
people in.
I know.
It's sickening.
He comes in here, because this is where we meet.
That's all I got.
Mr. Banks?
So I'll bring up the lady in Stony Brook on Ivory Stone.
I was
So-
gonna do that too.
Okay, so, Mike, can you reach out to DOT and see if we can get a sign? There's a mother on Ivory Stone in Stony Brook. She's got a deaf child, and there's been a couple times, well, at least one specific, where where vehicles come through and, you know.
There's signs made for that.
There are,
Yeah.
yes, and I've got examples of them. So there are actually DOT signs that are slow deaf child. So can we just look to see if we can get DOT to authorize putting?
It's a private
It's-
community,
Yeah.
so you can do what you want.
The district can authorize.
Yeah, it's our road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's our
and I
road.
was actually gonna
Or inside
request
Stony
that.
Brook.
Inside Stony
The
Brook.
single family or the multi-family?
I don't know
So
which one.
Typically, if you would live in an area that's serviced by Lee County, by DOT, they wouldn't put a sign up. They don't do those in neighborhoods, but being that this is these are private roads.
They're public roads, not a county road.
Yeah.
But they're not county maintained.
Correct.
Correct.
You
So we could do
We
it.
can put some signage up if you would. Do you have the address of where we would be looking at?
I do, and I'll give it to you. I don't,
Okay.
I don't
We
necessarily.
can find some appropriate signage.
Yeah,
to-
that's fine. Yeah.
We can find appropriate signage. to put
Margaret's
up.
got all the details. She'll get with you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
You ready for adjournment?
all I got.
And that was what I was gonna bring up, so.
Beat you to it.
You did beat me to it, that's fine.
You can still second it.
Yes, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
time,
6:52.
6:52.
We have a little bit of time.
Got a lot of time.
We are
I
adjourned.
didn't think we'd be done by
Got a lot done?
7:30. A lot of stuff.
Really did.
A lot of stuff to be done.
Give me another Snickers. I'm good.
Here, give it to him, he'll eat them.
No, I'm done. I had my 2 Snicker. So it was actually, it was Bill's executive leadership that got us back on time.
Yes, thank
Consolidating
you.
the action items.
Thank you for that idea.
That's driving efficiency.
But I think we could have ripped it over pretty bad.
Can you come in on Friday or Monday, the South Florida permit? I talked to South Florida. The only thing that's, we're just gonna sign one letter, send it in. The thing is, right. But the thing is that, right, the thing is that the ones,
It's good stuff.
what I was waiting on was whether or not,
Like I said, this
I was waiting to see what was happening with Hampton Park.
Yes, we're doing
So
last year.
with-
Real issue I've got,
See, this year,
I don't know what we're approving. If you go to some of those like I am,